A family lost 6 of its members when a fire ripped through a Homestead Street home around 2 a.m. today. From all accounts, the 3 generations of relatives didn't have a chance by the time the alarm was raised, restricted by security bars and likely caught off guard by the hour of the morning.
Detectives arriving on the scene were soon carting out the bodies as grief-stricken relatives arrived to evidence of an unimaginable tragedy. Our LTV's Munnings was on the scene as fire officials began their investigation.
Loud cries of grief were heard throughout the Homestead Street area early Monday morning when the news spread that 6 persons were found dead from a house fire.
My whole family gone. Oh God.
All distraught family members could do is cry from the shock of this tragedy. Several residents of this inner-city community stood in disbelief as they watched police conduct their initial investigation.
The units were able to extinguish this fire, and upon examining the interior of the house, discovered the lifeless bodies of 5 persons. 6. We could confirm that at least 6 persons have perished in this fire. And this is preliminary, and we're unable to provide much more information than that at this time.
Officer in charge of the Central Detective Unit, Superintendent Paul Roll, was able, though, to share a little more details with our news team later, indicating that detectives began the process of identifying the victims on Monday. He also informed us that most of the individuals were burnt beyond recognition, although an identity could possibly be retrieved from 1 or 2 of them. Now, once the identification process is complete, Mr. Roll said the autopsy begins. Now, the cause of the incident was still unknown up to news time. However, it was evident that burglar bars secured to another window in the house was still intact. And we saw an electrical cord that was reportedly connected from the fire-damaged home to another structure. But when authorities allowed the media inside the home, the occupants' clothes, furniture, housewares, and other personal items were scattered on the ground. The fire even destroyed an entire window as the pane and glass were gone. Morticians arrived in a convoy of vehicles moments later to transport the bodies to the morgue, to even more loud cries of grief. Officer in charge of the Police Fire Services Branch, Superintendent Walter Evans, used the opportunity to appeal to residents nationwide to be more fire safety conscious, particularly at the start of Fire Safety Awareness Week.
We are not happy when numbers like this happen or incidents like this happen, and we want to encourage individuals to adhere to safety principles that we will assist in. Again, the installation of a smoke detector, they save lives. They're very, very inexpensive, perhaps less than $20, and they can be purchased locally. For persons who need assistance in the installation of them, we can assist.
LTV's Munnings, ZNS Network News.
Well, at least 1 resident of the home was just hours removed from suffering the same fate as 6 of her relatives.
Now, Janae Noel Ferguson spoke with a young woman who says had it not been for a twist of fate, she may not have been alive today.
My sister Jennifer, her daughter Joashinique, my aunt Marilyn, my cousin Eunice, my next cousin Melchizedek, and my cousin Trevon.
Those are the reported names of the victims that died in the deadly house fire early Monday morning. 3 adults and 3 children. The youngest victim, a 2-year-old. Our ZNS News team returned to the scene when daylight broke Monday, and screams continued to ring out from residents mourning the tragic loss. Others in the community stood outside their doors in disbelief. A surviving family member, Maudline Barnett, who was not at home at the time of the blaze, still can't believe this tragedy happened.
My best friend called me and told me the house was on fire, and she asked me if anybody was in there. And I told her, yeah, they were in there sleeping. And then she told me the house was completely engulfed in flames. I don't even know how to explain this. Because the last thing my niece told me was she said, I love you, Auntie.
Barrett's Aunt Marilyn, who died in the fire, was also considered a community leader who reached out to help those in need.
She just was a people's person. If you needed help, like mostly foreigners, if they needed to get their documents regulated, she would assist them.
Now, officers from the Anglerston Urban Renewal Project and Royal Bahamas Defense Force officers, along with the Department of Social Services personnel, spoke with area residents to see where assistance is needed.
We were early out from 7 this morning
checking the grounds to find out if there's any intelligence that relates to this fire, because as you see here, the structure, it appears that the fire started from the roof area.
Inspector Frankie Mader also appealed to persons who may have any information about the fire to contact police.
We call on all neighbors to live closely together, because as you see here, the structure this morning, and you still having everybody in the area say they don't know what happened, they only hear the fire trucks, but somebody had to call the police.
Meanwhile, Barrett, who lost everything in the fire, is hoping that the community at large would lend some assistance so that she can begin rebuilding her life.
So if they feel it in their hearts to lend emotional, physical, monetary, any type of support, feel free to do so.
Janae Noel Ferguson, ZNES Network News.